everyone, welcome back to episode 7. I'm Connor Picken. I'm here with Ben. We're going to do a quick Q&A, talk about the fight over the weekend, talk about a fight we've got coming up next week. So Ben, how are you, mate? What's happening?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm doing good. We're just having a bit of a laugh off camera because we're really getting into things now. We're enjoying the podcast. So for this episode, should we just go straight in and go through the Q&As we have?
Yeah. So we had a few questions. There's 3 of them I want to go through. Now, the first question we were asked was, who is the best heavyweight of all time?
We were just laughing about this off camera. I mean, there's so many to choose from. And there's a lot of debatable answers. But for my opinion, I'm going to go Jack Dempsey. For the main reason, 50 KOs. He had over 70 fights. And he really put boxing on the map. So for me, without him, we wouldn't have the opportunity to be debating over the others almost. Because he was the one, he fought in an era of just completely fearless men. Although it was kind of early in the 1900s, 1916, I think, was kind of his professional career. Or when he was born, actually. I think he died in 1980. So kind of between 1960 and 1980 was when he was boxing. And for me, he kind of paved the way for boxers, and he set that precedent of I'll fight anyone anytime. And so for me, for a fighter who's fought some amazing fighters and really put boxing on the map, I think he has to go down as the best heavyweight, in my opinion. What about yourself, Ben?
So I think that's it's a good answer, interesting answer. I'm going to go with Joe Louis. Simply for the fact that he was unbeaten as heavyweight champion for 27 fights. It's a record for almost 12 years in the years 1937 to 1949. Obviously, we know why they were very important years in the context of the world. I think as well, the adversity that man overcame. He was born in Alabama, with a family. I think he was one of 6 children. The Ku Klux Klan were very active around there at the time, and he ended up having to move to Detroit as a young boy. Had a tough upbringing in Detroit in the early 1930s and late 20s. Came to boxing, started knocking everything out in front of him, had more trouble, overcame more adversity because there was a lot of, sort of repression and severe sort of violence towards black people, and not only that, but he struggled to get a shot because he was black at the time at the world heavyweight title. And I think he got a career defining win over Primo Carnera, who sort of was thought to symbolize Mussolini at the time. Beat him, then boxed Max Schmeling. Obviously at the time he was German, at the time of Hitler, so that was huge as well, and really brought America together. Obviously ended up losing to Rocky Marciano right at the end of his career, who he passed over the baton to. So I think, just really for that record alone, as well as the adversity he overcame, and the fact that probably Muhammad Ali wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Joe Louis, because he was his hero. So yeah, I think I'm going to go for Joe Louis. But what you said, it was beautiful. I think Jack Dempsey was one of the first main big heavyweight names. So yeah, it's an interesting debate, and one that you could go on about for ages.
Yeah, facts, mate. I mean, that's literally, it's completely subjective on the person, but I think we come from a very similar mindset for the reasons why anyway.
Yeah. And the next question was actually another pretty generic one, but nonetheless a good question, which was your favorite active boxer and why?
Yeah, so for me, my favorite active boxer is, I think I've talked about this on the podcast, it's Conor Benn. Because although Conor Benn fucking loves to talk about his sacrifice, like every other word he says is sacrifice, right? And he gives it all the big about how all the work he puts in, how he trains. I mean, every fighter does, but I just love the passion. For me, the reason I love boxing is I just love to see somebody change their lives through boxing. And I love Tony Bellew. He was my favorite. He's probably my favorite fighter of all time, realistically. I was just in honor and awe of him when he used to fight. And I see bits of Tony Bellew and Conor Benn in the pure dedication, the grit, the bit between his teeth. There's just something about Conor Benn where I look at and I just love to watch him fight, mate. So he's my favorite active boxer. How about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting what you say about Tony Bellew as well, for sure. Mine is actually Sean Porter. I love the way he boxes. I love how he comes to entertain, powers forward, loves a tear up. And I still think he's a dangerous name for anyone in and around that division. I love the fight with Spence. I thought it was fight of the year at the time. Just gave it everything. He just piles in. I love the way he speaks in interviews. He's got his own podcast, really nice bloke. And yeah, I just love watching him box. So Sean Porter for me is probably my favorite fighter. But then, there's Brits that I love. I've got a bit of a fondness for Billy Joe just because I like the way he boxes. But in terms of globally, yeah, I love Sean Porter. He's probably my favorite fighter. And then another question. Sorry, go on.
No, all I was going to say is it's funny you say Sean Porter because obviously Conor Benn fought Formella, and I think he was one of the only fighters to go the distance with Sean Porter at the time. And so it's just funny that a lot of people I think would say AJ or Fury or one of the bigger names, but for us to go to someone in the same division, it shows that division's really thriving at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very exciting. And then we had a few other questions. I think, when was the next time me and you were going to lace up the gloves and get in the ring?
Well, I'll let you lead with that one, mate.
Yeah, so currently boxing at my uni a little bit for the amateur boxing club there. They obviously run lots of shows, and we box Bristol and Swansea. So I would have looked to have got in and boxed this year at uni, but obviously, as we know, the COVID situation means that all I've been limited to do is pad and bag work in the club, and which is a real shame. But hopefully, I'll be able to get out and have a box and have a couple amateur bouts in the year ahead. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. What about you, mate?
Well, you're carded as well, aren't you? There.
Yeah, so it's a real mixture, mate. At uni, you have like white collar fight nights, you have like carded fights. You have a thing called Bucks, which is where all the unis compete. And then you have like gold, silver, and bronze. I think our main trainer is a young guy. Actually, he's one of the trainers, and he won silver recently in the Bucks. The Bucks is a good standard, but I'm not actually too sure about the standards elsewhere at uni. But I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, what about you, mate?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've only ever had one fight, and it was white collar when I was 18. So I don't have a dying kind of need to get back in the ring. I really wanted to experience it once because I love boxing and I wanted to know what fighters went through. And if I did, I probably got about, like, I'm not a natural heavyweight, and I'd probably have to lose like what I'm on now, like another 2 stone to really step in the ring. And so I think it will eventually happen again. Probably not amateur because I probably won't fight. It'll probably be another white collar, but do it properly. But it's not really something on the horizon. Maybe in like 2 years, a year's time. But right now, from my experience of white collar and boxing in the past, you have to put every inch of your kind of being and body into it. And I went in, mate, like I probably trained like twice a week, didn't run, was like got on the piss 2 nights before. Like, mate, I just did not look after myself and went in and took a beating. And so now I know if I'm doing it, I've got to put 100% into it. And I'm not ready to do that yet because of work and other priorities. So maybe in the future, but right now it's not priority for me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's a pretty self-explanatory, I guess. And we had a couple more. Trying to find them here. I've lost all my stuff. Oh yeah, most exciting prospect or fighter with a famous boxing dad. There's quite a few. Certainly for me, I'm looking forward to seeing Campbell Hatton step in the ring this weekend. I loved Ricky, and I'm sure you did too. I love Conor Benn, as I'm sure that would be your answer. Probably say looking forward to Harlem Eubank and his career coming up, but. Yeah, other than that, I'm not too sure. What about you, mate? Is it just Conor Benn for you, or?
I was going to say Conor Benn, but I feel like he's now not a prospect anymore. When he was kind of doing the JD Next Gen cards and he's fighting at York Hall, I probably would have said Conor Benn. But for me now, he's almost a world title contender. So I can't really put him in the likes of a prospect. But mate, Harlem Eubank is a brilliant fighter. I completely agree with you on that. As you say, Hatton Campbell. Ricky. I say Campbell Hatton. What am I saying? Is really exciting. I'm just trying to have a think. There is a really exciting heavyweight prospect, Scott Welch's son. So annoying. I've completely forgotten his name, but Scott Welch's son. He's just gone pro, so that'd be pretty exciting.
I've just broken my chair. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unreal.
You'll see me drop in the video actually, but anyway, yeah, no, that's all very exciting, mate, for sure. And now I guess just to avoid us going on for too long today, I'm not sure how long we've done so far, but we're going to jump into this weekend's action, I guess, mate. Now, and well, I guess we'll start with a couple fights on the IFL TV NTK Global card on Friday. And one thing in particular, which I'm sure you've seen, was the Maxi Hughes win, which relates a fair bit to Gavin Gwynn, who we've had on the pod, and hopefully he can get in there for the British and Commonwealth. What did you think of the bizarre finish, mate? Because the ref stepped in, then walked away again, said box on. Paul Island Jr. walked to a neutral corner, and Max Hughes ran up behind him and knocked him out. So what did you make of the whole event?
Mate, it was really weird. That stoppage, it was just, I don't know, because obviously you're not in the ring at the time, but from a kind of a man-to-man level, to knock someone out when they've got their back to you, it's just one thing you don't do is in boxing is ever turn your back. But it was such a miscommunication between the fighter, the referee, and the other fighter. So I don't even know what to make of it, really. But one thing I do have to give props to is MTK, because their cards are getting better and better. Like the level of fights on their cards, but also their production level, like it's really, really good. And I'm really enjoying their cards right now. So fair play to MTK, because they've really come into their own. But mate, that stoppage, I feel so bad. I feel like that should be looked into, to be honest, because it's almost just unfair. But Maxi Hughes versus Gavin Gwynn, as you say, would be a really big fight. What do you think about that stoppage?
I think the referee's made a mistake. He's obviously Paul Allen Jr.'s legs bent, didn't they, towards the canvas. He's seen that, obviously jumped the gun a bit, jumped in to separate the fighters, and then realised he's not touched the floor. Come back out. Probably it's a bit of like mix of Paul Allen Jr. being a bit dazed, and then thinking that he's been knocked down and he was walking to the neutral corner. But yeah, you've got to protect yourself at all times in the ring. So it's a bit of a bizarre one, and I can't really blame Maxi Hughes too much. I mean, sportsmanship's one thing, but in the ring, we've seen Floyd Mayweather do it at the highest level when someone's turned their back. So it's just one of those things. It's a bizarre ending to a strange fight, really. But we also saw Lee McGregor, didn't we? So let's talk a little bit about him and the work that Ben Davison's doing, because he looks superb, mate. What do you reckon?
Mate, that was an amazing fight. I mean, Lee McGregor is such a prospect. I saw Lee Eaton put on his Instagram story afterwards. Lee McGregor will be a world champion, and I actually believe it. I mean, he is superb, and he's got an amazing trainer behind him. And the sparring, even the body sparring he must be getting in Ben Davison's camp must be amazing. So Ben's got a really good kind of stable now. Lee Wood, Lee McGregor, Josh Taylor. He's also got another fighter. I've completely forgotten his name.
Jack Fincham.
Yes, Jack Fincham. That's fucking hilarious. But it was round one stoppage, wasn't it, Lee McGregor's fight? And it was just a brilliant performance, to be honest. How did you break it down?
Yeah, it's not really much to break down, was it? Really, it was first round European title, smashed him to bits, and I think, he's definitely McGregor's definitely one that's going to look to at least win a world title. I think he probably will, mate. So yeah, excited to see where he goes now, and then we'll move on quickly to the Okolie Gawaki card, mate. I think we'll start at the very top. So Lawrence Okolie, take it away.
I mean, he did what we said, basically, didn't he? What I was quite scared about was Glowacki, or Glovatsky, I think is the way you probably say it, was changing his height quite well. So in the first few rounds, I was thinking, right, if he keeps on changing his height here, Okolie might not be able to land. And then as the fight kind of progressed, he was landing a bit more flush and clean. And then, as we said, he punches like a fucking horse kick, doesn't he, mate? He punches so hard. But at the time when I was watching it live, I did feel like it was a bit of a premature stoppage, because I felt like he could have come up counter to it and carried on. But looking back on it, I kind of watched it and thought, nah, it was a fair enough stoppage. He was all over the place. But I mean, what a fight, mate, right?
Yeah, he's so big and imposing at the weight as well, mate. Like, he definitely wants to move up to heavyweight. I think he's got a couple of fights left at cruiserweight, because he's right on the border, isn't he, of the limit. I thought he was absolutely excellent. Just brilliant. I think Shane McGuigan, I said actually, I don't want to be a told you so kind of merchant, but I did say he'd be quite measured. I had a bet on that round and mid rounds, and I knew he'd be measured and then just eventually stop him and walk him onto one of those long right hands. And he yeah, he smashed him to bits from round one to the end in the sixth, and I think the referee had to stop it because Glowacki barely hit Okolie above the shoulders.
Yeah, he
And
didn't.
yeah, he was just so big, just so good, boxed brilliantly on the outside. Yeah, I can't wait to see him in there with Breedis and the guys at the top, because I think he can beat them, just if not on pure skill, but on awkwardness and just his body shape, mate, because his arms are just so long.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? And I mean that what Shane McGuigan's done with him. He used to be really cagey. Like he used to try and like clinch loads, and out of the clinch, it would be really kind of like it wasn't the best boxing, but he's now kind of clinching a lot less and boxing off the back foot, jabbing, moving. His angles are a lot better, and I think that's what really kind of won him this fight. Is he punch and move, and box on the outside. Whereas before he'd try and clinch, and it wouldn't be very nice, but. I mean, the Makabu fight is a fight I'd love to see, but also Breedis is a brilliant fight.
Yeah, he's got a superior jab really to anyone in that division for me. Just if not just off pure reach, you know, off just skill really. He sort of flicks one out and then throws that jab really well. And I can't wait to see him move up to heavy. To be honest, I know I'm getting ahead of myself a bit here, but yeah, I got a lot of love now for Okolie. He's won the hearts of a lot of people, I think, with that win, and yeah, good on him. And his music isn't quite as bad as I've previously said on this podcast, to be fair to him. So now you've got to give Okolie his credit. He was brilliant. And yeah, looking forward to what's next. And then I guess we could talk just a little bit before we move on to Whyte Povetkin. We could talk a little bit on some of the other performances on the card. Billiam Smith, another one of Shane McGuigan's fighters, was boxing on the card. Joe Cordina boxed on the card. What did you make of the other fights, mate?
So I think for Billiam Smith, I think the judging was just horrendous. Like how one judge gave it 99.90, the other one gave it 97.92. I felt really bad for Dusar because he is one game and hard bastard, really. And I felt for me, the knockdowns won Billiam Smith the fight, if anything. And those cards were pretty shocking, but I wasn't overly impressed, to be honest, with his performance. I think he did enough, but when Dusar was brought in for Dion Juma kind of last minute, I wasn't impressed. And Joe Cordina, mate, very flat-footed, but 19 months or whatever it was out the ring. Ellie Scottney really impressed. Ramal Ali really impressed, and obviously Brad Rea was a great first round stoppage, or Brad Rea. But how did you make breakdown from the kind of Chris Billiam Smith fight?
Well, I actually disagree a little bit, mate. So I thought probably as long as that because of the two knockdowns. I felt he controlled a lot of the early proceedings. I didn't agree with a lot of Matthew Macklin, what he was saying during the fight. I thought he boxed well in the first half of the fight for sure. Down the stretch, I felt William Smith gassed a little bit. You could see his mouth was opening, and he did look very tired. I know what you mean. He was quite slow at times, but you've got to factor in the fact that he was originally boxing Dion Juma at Southpaw, and yeah, had a bit of a last minute change. And Vasyl Dukar can fight, man. He sparred some really great opponents. So I wasn't too. I mean, I wasn't overly like amazed by him, but I wouldn't be too critical of Billiam Smith. I thought he got the job done, and it was another example of how good a trainer Shane McGuigan has come to be now. I really like the work he's doing with him. In terms of Joe Cordina, like you said, I think he just needed the rounds, and that's why I had a bet actually on a decision, because I knew he'd need him. He's been 15 months out of the ring, and yeah, just got the rounds in, banked him in, boxed well in the first half of the fight, and actually probably lost a couple of rounds in the second half of the fight. I think Korbanov was, if I got his name right there. I thought he boxed okay down the stretch, and actually should have started a bit earlier, if that makes sense. He ended up boxing quite well, and yeah, it's just important rounds for Joe. So
he was one round away from losing that fight. One of the judges scored it even. That's impossible.
Yeah, I didn't agree with that. That's one. I was trying to be as fair as I could actually on the cards, because I've said a lot about the British Board of Box Control recently and some of the decisions they've made. But I think, yeah, that was one on the card which I was disappointed with. So I agree with you there, mate. But other than that, yeah, he just banked the rounds. And yeah, it's probably a good 10 rounder for him and going forward. And yeah, and then now I guess we'll move on to the Whyte Povetkin card, mate. So let's start with Metcalf. Break that down. Where do you see it going? Who do you think is going to win that one?
Sorry, mate, you just cut out there. Say that again.
Sorry, mate.
No,
Cheeseman Metcalf, I said. First Whyte Povetkin, We'll talk
Yeah,
about a Whyte Povetkin card. Cheeseman Metcalf. What do you think, mate?
I think it's a really good fight. I think I backed Ted Cheeseman mostly because I think Ted Cheeseman was on the first card I ever went to and watched as a boxing fan, and since then I've just loved his journey. So I think he's some bloke, and Metcalf. It's a tough fight. It's a really tough fight, in my opinion. But I think Cheeseman has hopefully has the win on, and he's got Tony Sims in his corner, mate. He's a brilliant trainer, and then hopefully if he wins that, I felt bad for Ted because the interview he did. Do you remember the interview when he was crying? And everything was going against him, and I feel like this win will kind of propel him onto maybe another path of greatness, hopefully, and he can go and achieve big things. But it's actually a really good fight, to start the night if it's going to start the night. But what do you think about it?
I'm not sure if it's starting tonight, but I just thought I think it might even be co-main. Yeah, it's for the British, isn't it? So yeah, I expect Ted to win that fight fairly comfortably. I think Metcalf's he's in the top 10 rankings. Obviously, the British down on BoxRec, I think it's like number 10 or 9, something like that. I expect Ted to win it. He's got bags of experience in the bank. Metcalf hasn't really boxed too many names at all so far, so I think Ted will win the fight, not only because of Tony Sims, but also just off of pedigree, really. And yeah, I do feel a bit sorry for Ted. He boxed terribly. I remember in that Sergio Garcia fight, and he was visibly quite distraught after that. Got a bit of a moody decision against Scott Fitzgerald and actually Kieran Conway. So it was 2 in a row. I can't remember how I scored both of those fights, but yeah, I think he got robbed, didn't he? So yeah, no, I feel bad for Ted, but certainly this is a good one to get him back in the mix, and I think he can still beat most of the lads, if not all of the lads at British level.
Yeah, that's why I think I was saying it's a good comeback fight, because I feel like for him to come back, well, I think the Kieran Conway fight, I think he was robbed actually. But when he's coming back, I feel like British title, it's a nice title to have under your belt, and then go for European and kind of push back up. So I feel like it's a really strong fight for him, an important fight for him going forward.
Yeah, and then we got Wardley Molina, which is a bit of a ball tickler, to be fair.
What do you think about that?
I think Wardley will win that fight, just because I think Eric Molina's now been out of the ring for 15 months. He's obviously boxed some big names, got some good experience, and he's a bit of a gatekeeper, if not just below gatekeeper sort of level. I expect Fabio to stop him, actually, to be quite honest. But it's a perfect fight Eddie's given him there, just to bridge that gap a little bit and push towards that British elite level, if not European, if not world, eventually. Sorry, I really rate Fabio Wardley. What about you, mate? How do you break that one down?
Well, I think what you said there is really true. Like Eddie's done really well matching that fight, because it's a name who's a bit spent, but been in with the best. And so Fabio can now say, like, I've beat him who's been in with the best. He's got that experience, and it's just a brilliant name. As you say, like a gatekeeper, not even probably top 10, like a gatekeeper to that top 20, top 15, where you can really start kind of stepping in. And I mean, I'd love to see after this fight, maybe Wardley versus Christian Hammer. I think that'd be a really good fight.
Yeah, he's just got to box those kind of guys, who've got top heavyweight experience. And yeah, just bridge that gap, because I think it's a good way to progress. Don't jump in, get ahead of yourself. I think the way that Fabio Wardley will be taken through, he'll be managed a bit better than Daniel Dubois was, to be honest. Not that I don't think Daniel Dubois, like, do you know what I mean, is good enough to go on and win world titles. Of course, I think he is, but I just think, yeah, Fabio Wardley, if taken through the right progression, which I think he is, will be one to look out for. So yeah, I think Fabio wins that fight. Then we've got Campbell Hatton's debut. Very excited for that, as we've mentioned before on here. Yeah, just super excited for him. Obviously, we're not sure who the opponent is. It will just be a journeyman probably to knock over. But good that he can get out and get some experience in front of fans as well, mate. In Gibraltar, hopefully there'll be a few in there when he boxes.
You know what I thought with Campbell Hatton is, because I hadn't really seen him fight. Like, I didn't watch his amateurs. And so I went back, and there's really, everyone listening, you should go and watch it. It's a really good fight. It's Campbell Hatton versus Danny Morrell. And it's actually a really good fight. And Danny Morrell beats him, mate. He boxes brilliantly. Like, it's actually a really, really good fight. The full fight's on YouTube. It's in the Hatton gym. and Danny Morrell outclasses him completely and boxes his head off. And so what I'd quite like to see is Danny Morrell box brilliant in his debut against Dale Arrowsmith, who's like a bit of is a huge journeyman. But I'd love to see Campbell Hatton in with Dale Arrowsmith, because I feel like they're two prospects who are kind of on their same journey. So I'd love to see Dale Arrowsmith in there as his debut, but I'm not sure if they have released who it is. If it's not, I'd like it to be him. But anyone who wants to see a bit of Campbell Hatton, go and watch that fight against Danny Morrell. It's on YouTube. Really good fight.
What kind of style is Campbell Hatton? Because I've obviously I haven't seen any of him. So
just like his dad, like coming forward, bit between his teeth, like planting his feet. And Danny Morrell, just the way he cuts his angles off when he's being walked down, turns him, like it's really, really good boxing. And if you're not the best at kind of having that bit between your teeth and going for it, you're going to come up against people like that who can cut angles off and box really well. And so it'll be really interesting to see what style he adapts to in the pros, but he really actually does box just like his old man.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him then. And then, yeah, just to finish, mate, we've done quite well here, rattling them all off. Dillian Whyte versus Povetkin 2. Eddie Hearn's calling it the Rumble on the Rock, for fuck's sake. Yeah, jump in, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, my opinion is, I mean, he did everything perfectly last time out. Like, boxed brilliantly, didn't jump in too early, had him down. I just feel like he's got to do a bit of the same and kind of hopefully take him out. But Povetkin will come in with a lot of confidence. He's done it once, will do it again. So I think he's got to be a little bit more switched on, mate. And fucking hell, we can't underestimate how important this fight is for Dillian Whyte. This is make or break. This is his chance to box for a world title. If he doesn't get this, then that chance is gone for the next 2 or 3 years at least. And then will he retire by then? So this is fucking it for Dillian Whyte, mate. How do you break it down?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, Whyte probably made 1 or 2 mistakes all night, and one of those mistakes cost him. Obviously, head down, looking at the canvas. Povetkin threw a good shot and then came up the middle with a nice uppercut and knocked him spark out, basically. But up until that point, I think he had Povetkin down 2 or 3 times. A lot of people have been saying he needs to make a lot of adjustments, but actually looking back on it, he probably doesn't really need to make too many. Just make him pay this time. And I expect Whyte to stop him. It's going to be a strange setup, obviously, in Gibraltar and how they fly over there. And it's just, the whole thing's going to be very weird. And I hope it doesn't unsettle Dillian. But like you said there, this is such a big fight for him in the context of his career now. It's not quite make or break, but you can make an argument for it being make or break in terms of the short-term vision of capturing one of those world titles. So, yeah, it's a huge fight, but my money's on a Dillian Whyte's stoppage. Yeah,
the stoppage is something I agree with. I feel like he's not going to go for it, but maybe he will. And a lot of people have had things to say about his corner, his team, like you said, but he has stuck with the same team, and it is, anyone can have it anywhere. And that's what I like about Dillian Whyte, because he's not one of the heavyweights who, I don't want to call out people here, but like AJ, who says boxing's back in the UK, but then leaves to Saudi and America. And then Dillian Whyte will genuinely give it to anybody, anywhere, anytime. He just loves to fight. And that's such an old school mentality. And that is something that's so unique and something we have to be so thankful for.
Yeah, if you look at Dillian's life, mate, you know, a bit of a biography about him. I don't know if you knew some of this stuff, but he grew up a little bit in Jamaica at a very, very young age, like sort of age 9, 10. He was out on a boat with his dad. He had never swum before, went half a mile out on a boat and made him swim back to shore without ever swimming before. He got a girl pregnant at age 13, had a child. He's been shot twice, I think, stabbed twice when he moved over to Kennington in London. Mate, he's just, that sort of attitude of fighting anyone anytime just sort of personifies and is a real metaphor for his wider life, because he's faced so much adversity in his life. And I think you've got to admire Dillian for that and where he is now. And I really hope he gets the job done. But also, as I said on here before, I admire Povetkin, and he gets a lot of bad press, and certainly he's done a few dodgy things in his career, that's for certain. But Povetkin's another one that will get in with anyone at any point. So yeah, I really like both of them, and I can't wait for the fight, mate.
100%, mate. And I think that's it. It's going to be one hell of a fight, and we'll have so much to talk about after that fight because it's a really good card. So, and then obviously we've just had the announcement of the next pay-per-view card, but we'll leave that probably till next week and discuss that further. But yeah,
I think there's so much boxing coming up. We're really being treated. You know, I'm looking forward to Herring Frampton as well in there. That's a bit of a sleeper, given that we've had Andrade announced. You know, Chisora Parker card, which has a couple of world title shots on there, and Craig Richards has got the shot like I said he would, mate. So yeah, can't wait for that, and we'll break that down in a future episode. But look, I mean, I think we've waffled enough on this one, and just a little pod there, and we'll have a couple of fighter interviews coming up next.
Yeah, we got some amazing fighters. He's coming up this week, and just a preview before the boxing we've got ahead of us. So everyone enjoy the boxing, and me and Ben will see you hopefully this week with some good fighter interviews.
Wicked. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much.